Just as my sister, Alicia, was about to be kidnapped by human traffickers, the sky suddenly lit up with a series of explosive bullet comments. One of them read, "The glorious female lead has been reborn. She's being abducted right now, but she's not worried at all because she knows her cheap-ass brother will come save her and take her place instead." The next bullet comment was even more outrageous. "The female lead's only obsession after reincarnation is to wait for the supporting male character to disappear, then go to the orphanage to find the male lead and make him her brother instead. What a deliciously twisted drama." Another comment chimed in. "In the previous life, the male lead wasn't adopted until 3 years later. Because of that, the billionaire parents didn't have time to transfer all the assets from the supporting male to the male lead before the supporting male was found again. Luckily, our female lead had brains. To avenge the male lead, she tricked the supporting male into the black market and sold him off in batches. On the day the supporting male died, she returned billions in assets to the male lead." So sweet. The final bullet comment. "But being reborn isn't so bad. In this life, the female lead will never give the second male lead a chance to come back home." Seeing all this, I immediately took 2 steps back without making a sound, pretended I hadn't seen anything, and turned around to run. Chapter 1. George. I turned my head and saw Alicia surrounded by 3 burly men. She shouted toward me at the alley entrance, "Call the police. Hurry, call the police." Oh, look at that voice, trembling with fear, almost convincing. What a pity, my dear sister. You're not the only one who was reborn. I was reborn too. And once again, the sky exploded with bullet comments, gleefully watching the drama unfold. One comment read, "Classic human shield plot. Come on, supporting male lead. Don't be an obstacle to our main couple's love." All right, good. Another chimed in. "Our male lead is still out there working miserable jobs. Supporting male, hurry and rescue the female lead so Alicia can go rescue the male lead." Rescue? I remember it vividly. When I threw myself at the traffickers without a second thought, all I saw was her cold back fleeing the scene. I barely escaped from that hellish mountain, thinking I could finally have family again, but I didn't even get a single day of peace. She, my dear biological sister, sold me to a black market auction where organ traffickers gleefully split me into price tags. And just because of one sentence from Makoto, they decided to change the rules on the spot. No anesthetic, only muscle relaxants. Afterward, the 2 of them used the money to live it up with zero guilt. I'm no saint. Why the hell should I sacrifice myself for them? I looked at Alicia as she stretched out her trembling hand, but behind those eyes was unmistakable calculation. I raised an eyebrow, and just as one of the men's hands was about to land on her shoulder, I took a sudden step back, then another. Crash. The phone I had been gripping tightly slipped from my hand, shattered on the cold concrete, and fell straight into the sewer with deadly precision. Alicia froze, mouth agape like a chicken with its neck strangled. No sound came out. Even the bullet comments were dumbfounded. What's going on? Isn't the supporting male supposed to rush in and save her? Why is he backing away? What's up with his hand? How did the phone fall into the sewer that perfectly? Then came another comment. The plot's falling apart. If he doesn't save the female lead, what's going to happen to her? The next second, Alicia, face flushed with rage, yelled at me, "George, are you out of your mind? Can't you see I'm in danger? Why aren't you coming to save me?" She panicked and began to beg the traffickers next to her. "Take him instead. He's my brother. Look how strong he is. You could sell him on the black market for a fortune. Don't worry, I'll even help you raise the ransom. Our parents are. How about I take 30% and you take 70%? Deal." Wow. In our last life, she escaped thanks to me. This time, she didn't even bother acting. She's trying to trade my life again for a few moments of safety. School let out early, and the streets were already deserted. It was pouring rain, and the few passers-by were rushing under umbrellas. None of them would notice what was happening at the alley entrance. These traffickers probably counted on that perfect timing and setting. They weren't in a rush at all, just stared at me with greedy eyes. I glanced at the expensive bracelet on Alicia's wrist and pinched my thigh hard, feigning terror. I shook my head and said in a trembling voice, "What are you talking about, sis? Mom and Dad always spoiled you. Just last week, for your birthday, they bought you a $10 million bracelet without hesitation. You're wearing it right now. My words instantly made them turn their eyes to Alicia's wrist. Honestly, if she hadn't flaunted her wealth so much, this disaster might not have happened in the first place. I seized the moment and turned to run. In my panic, I tripped over a bottle on the ground, but the fear from my past life didn't allow me a moment of rest. I got up and kept running. I only stopped when the bullet comments started insulting me. That's when I turned back. The traffickers hadn't chased after me. The bullet comments read, "Alicia got taken. Supporting male is so pathetic, spineless. Now the female lead has to suffer because of him. Hang in there. Girl, your parents will come for you." Another commented, "Did Alicia's rebirth alter the supporting male's behavior? Wait, wasn't she the female lead? Why does she have no plot armor at all? Then, supporting male, just wait for your karma. The female lead will come back, and when she does, our male lead will return, so the sweet, messy family drama will continue." I couldn't help but burst out laughing. Plot armor? Even if it exists, I'll strangle it in the cradle with my own hands. Dear sister, in this life, not only will I not shield you from disaster, I'll even find someone to take your place. Chapter 2. When I got home, my parents were still in a meeting at the company. Alicia usually stayed at her best friend's place on weekends, so no one would even suspect that she was missing. But I didn't choose to hide the truth. I took the initiative and called my parents. They rushed back immediately. My mom broke down and slapped me hard across the face, shouting, "You call this being a big brother? Are you an idiot? Why didn't you rush in and hold them back? George, you're so cold-blooded." I had already anticipated that this would be my mom's reaction. Ever since we were kids, whenever my sister and I had conflicts, it was okay for her to hit me, but if I ever fought back, my mom would say that as an older brother, I should give in to my little sister, that no matter what, a man should never hit a woman. What baffled me even more was that my dad always echoed her opinion, as if trying to show how progressive and enlightened he was. Later, when I was kidnapped and barely managed to escape, they complained that I had picked up the habits of rural life, that I was unworthy and uncultured, and even told people I wasn't their biological son, but an orphan the Wong family adopted. Meanwhile, they showered all their attention on the replacement, Makoto. They always cared about saving face, always thought I was a disgrace to them. But that's fine. This time, the one to disgrace them won't be me. I suddenly looked up, fear written all over my face, and asked her, "Mom, if I had rushed up to stop them, then what?" I rolled up my pant leg, revealing the surgical scar on my left leg, and said, "Mom, do you remember this scar? When I was 12, I jumped into the river to save my sister. She climbed out and ran away, but I was swept away and shattered my bones. I stayed in the hospital for 3 months, and to this day, when it rains, my leg still aches. That night, in that heavy rain, I could barely stand from the pain. But later she said it was all just to test my loyalty. I didn't dare save her this time because I didn't know if this was another one of her little loyalty tests. It really hurt, but there was no such thing as a loyalty test. The truth was, Alicia wanted to fight me for the family inheritance. She was trying to find a way to kill me. My words stirred up my mom's memories, and her face instantly filled with regret. She began apologizing repeatedly. "I'm sorry, George. I didn't know you were in so much pain." Mom just lost her head for a moment. Maybe because of her change in attitude, my dad also believed me. He slammed the table and roared, "Right? It must be her own scheme. She colluded with outsiders to fake a kidnapping and extort ransom. We have to call the police and teach that brat a lesson." Without another word, he called the police and reported Alicia missing, demanding they find her. I wasn't worried in the slightest. The human traffickers behind this were powerful. After I was abducted, I was shuffled around countless places before they finally sold me off half a year later. Finding Alicia wouldn't be that easy. As the days passed, my parents' anger turned to fear and worry. Eventually, they became numb. They poured what little affection they had left entirely onto me, hiring several bodyguards to protect me. Half a year went by. They barely mentioned Alicia anymore. When my 16th birthday came, I knew it was time to act. Right after dinner that weekend, I pinched my thigh hard and, crying like someone at a funeral, began wailing at the family portrait. My mom was startled and rushed over. "George, what's wrong? Don't scare us like this. Tell us, did something happen at school?" I shook my head. "No." I paused for a moment and then said, "I just miss my sister." Chapter 3. A trace of sadness flickered across my mom's face. My dad got up awkwardly and began pacing the room. Sure enough, my mom hesitated before saying the same thing she had told Alicia in my previous life. George, are you feeling too lonely on your own? How about we adopt a little sister for you? Absolutely not. If Alicia came back later, they'd just blame me, claiming it was my idea to find some girl to replace her. I said, Mom, that's not what I meant. I continued, a few days ago, I had a dream. I saw my sister suffering terribly. She was living in misery. It's a shame even the police haven't been able to find her. To this day, we still don't know whether she was truly kidnapped or if she was working with the traffickers. I want to use my free time on weekends to volunteer to help those in need. Maybe that way I can earn some good karma on her behalf. My parents were moved, tears welling up as they praised me for being so thoughtful. My dad said, George has grown up. You're so sensible now. Do whatever you feel is right. Your mom and I will fully support you. I nodded and chatted with them for a bit before heading back to my room to review the information the private investigator had sent me on Willow. Then the bullet comments popped up again, full of insults. This male side character is disgusting. He's just feeling guilty and trying to redeem himself with fake good deeds, becoming the protagonist. Please, just wait. Once the main couple returns, it'll be the end for you. Another comment read, Poor female lead. She's been beaten by traffickers for half a year, barely has food or clothes. All because of this worthless man. The next one replied, Now that the female lead's kidnapped, the male lead will just have to suffer like in the last life, too. I only smiled silently and contacted my driver to plan tomorrow's schedule. No need to worry. Now that this vicious side character is me, Alicia, and Makoto, they're in for a life of suffering this time, all the way to the end. The next day, I headed to the juvenile detention center early in the morning. As soon as I arrived at the library, a staff member quietly warned me, Stay away from the girl by the window. She might look pretty, but she's in here for killing someone. Claimed it was self-defense. Her adoptive father was a monster. He didn't adopt her out of kindness, and the night he tried to force himself on her, she killed him. It was brutal. I nodded with a smile, but after the staff member left, I deliberately walked over to Willow with a book in hand. Willow looked up, her eyes coiling around me like a venomous snake. In just a second, a chill ran down my spine, exactly like the first time I met her in my past life. Before I was sold into the mountains by traffickers, I had met Willow, also abducted by them. We spent a few days together. I was the one who always initiated conversations. She only answered selectively. The next time we met was when I finally found a chance to escape from the mountains. By then, she had already killed the crime boss who bought her and taken his place, becoming the Black Widow the local media talked about. She recognized me, took out the villagers chasing after me, and helped me return safely to the Wong family. Snapping back to the present, I sat down across from her. The bullet comments, as usual, seemed to know even more than I did. Holy shit, isn't that the female villain, Willow? Why is George talking to her at this point in the story? They don't even know each other. Another said, This side character's guts, though. He actually came to find this psycho chick. Her adoptive father's debt collectors are offering a reward for her. She's clearly hiding in here on purpose. He's gonna get himself killed. And the next one. Good, let him die. That's karma for not saving the female lead. A trashy man paired with a psycho woman. Perfect match. Oh, so Willow's the female villain. Well, that does make us a good pair. As for the bounty, I'd already learned all about it from the private investigator I hired. I came here today specifically to negotiate with her. I opened the book and handed her a slip of paper. It contained the intel I'd gathered. I said, The debt collectors bribed a guard. 3 days from now, during free time, they're going to kill you. Willow's fingers tensed. She looked up at me again, her eyes dark and unreadable. I smiled slowly and said, Come with me. I'll help you handle it. She bit her lip. What's the condition? I stared straight into her eyes and said, word by word, Be my pawn. Help me crush all the trash in my way. Willow rolled her eyes. And why the hell should I trust you? Prove it. She pointed out the window. A bald, scarred-faced man was raising his fist at a boy who looked about 14 or 15. I raised an eyebrow, just about to get up and make a call, when suddenly a bullet comment flashed by. Chapter 4. The bullet comments read, Isn't that the male lead, Makoto? What a coincidence. He just finished his part-time job and happened to pass by the vicious side character's car. Another comment added, sigh. Male lead has suffered so much. He can't help but stare at the luxury car a little longer. Just don't let the side character catch you. The next one chimed in. Don't worry. Once Alicia comes back, the cars, the house, the company, everything that belongs to the Wong family will be yours. Right now, the side character is just keeping it warm for you. I glanced toward the entrance. Not far away, Makoto was cautiously probing my family's driver, asking who knows what. His eyes were glued to the luxury car, fingers clenching subconsciously, greed plain and unfiltered in his gaze. I chuckled quietly. Wait for Alicia to come back? Well, that depends on whether she can even crawl her way back out. I looked away and stepped into a corner to call my father. I said, Dad, I'm volunteering today, but there's this bald guy with a scar here. He's beating a kid with an iron rod. The kid's bleeding all over the place. Dad, what I mean is, can you have them lock that guy up in isolation? 3 minutes later, a sharp whistle pierced the air. 5 guards pinned the scarred bald man to the ground. Electric batons crackled with sparks. Willow's pupils trembled slightly. I put my phone away and asked her, was that convincing enough? Your answer. Willow pressed her lips together and said with mocking sarcasm, so what's next? Are you going to cry to your daddy every time you hit an obstacle? I didn't respond, just smiled. After spending a few days with her in my past life, I had already figured her out. She's that type, pretending to hesitate when she'd already made up her mind. The fact that I dared to propose a deal meant I already had a solution for her problems. I said, I'll go handle the paperwork. You get changed and wait for me at the gate. Chapter 5. After leaving the juvenile detention center, Willow was already standing beside the Maybach in her own clothes. Her clothes were worn to the point of fading, wrinkled, and torn, but her youthful face gave her an oddly fragile look, the kind that made people want to protect her without even realizing it. She really was beautiful, and beauty, when paired with any other card, becomes an unbeatable hand. Willow had just that. My gaze made her uncomfortable. She twisted the hem of her shirt with tightly clenched fingers. She frowned and said, this is the only outfit I have. If you think I'm dirty, I don't have to get in the car. Only then did I realize she'd misunderstood me. I quickly explained, you've got it wrong. I was just admiring how beautiful you are. Get in, you're coming home with me. I narrowed my eyes and looked at her, still hesitating. What? Do you want me to carry you in? Willow flinched, then got into the car immediately. That's when I noticed Makoto standing just beyond her, previously blocked from view. His eyes were full of jealousy and hatred, locked onto me with burning intensity. I raised an eyebrow, and amidst a wave of curses from the bullet comments, I headed home. Both my parents happened to be at home. George, how did volunteering turn into going to a detention center? My mom hadn't even finished her sentence when she spotted Willow behind me. She frowned. George, who is this girl? My dad's face darkened instantly. He snapped, this is going too far. What kind of disreputable woman are you dragging into our home? Get her out immediately. I walked toward them, then dropped to my knees with a loud thud. Willow instinctively came over to help me up. My parents saw everything. Tears ran down my face as I cried out in pain. Dad, Mom, back at the center, she was the one that bald man was beating with an iron rod. It was this thick. I was afraid she'd be bullied in there. I'm sorry, I should have asked you first, but for the first time, I felt like I saw my sister in someone else. I had this urge to protect her. I subtly gave Willow a signal. She lowered her gaze and tears slid down her pale cheeks. She pressed her lips together and trembled ever so slightly, the very image of pitiful beauty. Beauty really is a powerful weapon sometimes. I turned back to my mom, whose face now showed hesitation, and pleaded, Mom, let her stay for just one meal. A hot shower, some clean clothes. If my sister were out there, I'd hope someone kind would give her at least one hot meal. My mom's heart clearly softened. Her tears fell instantly. Even my dad's tightly furrowed brows began to ease as he studied Willow in silence. Eventually, my dad gave a tired wave and called for the housekeeper. He said, take her to the guest room. Let her wash up and give her a clean set of clothes. That was exactly what I expected. They cared too much about appearances to adopt a daughter outright and be gossiped about by others. But if they wanted to dump the responsibility on me, I wouldn't have it. so I had no choice but to carefully set the stage and ease them into accepting her. At my signal, Willow obediently followed the housekeeper out of the living room. Just as I finally let out a breath of relief, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was a friend who'd sent me a link to a post, and in the post, the main characters were Willow and me. Show or sheltering evil. Rich heir's scandalous night at a juvenile center, defending a beautiful killer for love. Chapter 6. I scrolled through the pictures attached to the post. All of them were secretly taken shots of me and Willow standing at the entrance. The written account was even more ridiculous, pure fiction, absurd beyond belief. By the end, it had escalated from attacking me to smearing the entire Wong family. It accused the Wongs of hypocrisy, of harboring criminals, and even claimed we had shady dealings with a murderer. The post shot up the trending list like wildfire, already reaching the #1 spot in the local hot topics. I already had my suspicions. The arrogant bullet comments confirmed them. One read, "Of course the male lead would strike the side character down the moment they meet. A perfect way to avenge the female lead." I couldn't help but wonder, had Makoto been reborn too? But I quickly dismissed the thought. If he had truly come back to life with memories intact, how could he tolerate living in such poverty now? And that look in his eyes today, greedy, inferior, desperate. There was no way he was faking that. In a twisted sense, he and Alicia really were made for each other. Just then, Willow walked out, freshly washed and wearing a brand new dress. She noticed the grim look on my face and asked softly, "Something happened?" That's when I remembered Willow wasn't just a villainess. She also had a hacker background. I silently handed her my phone. She glanced at the screen, and her gaze instantly turned cold as ice. She asked, "Do you have a computer?" I led her to the bedroom without hesitation. 10 minutes later, the post vanished completely, wiped from the internet. The account that published it was permanently banned, and every bit of information tied to that burner account's IP address was laid bare by her. Willow looked up at me. "You have a grudge with him?" I nodded. "You could say that." She lowered her head again and worked a bit more before turning the screen toward me. A topic under Makoto's name was rising bizarrely fast up the trending chart. It was filled with his dirty past, stealing aid funds meant for underprivileged students, gambling in underground casinos, chaotic private life, shady loans to build a fake persona. So the male lead was secretly involved in every vice: drugs, gambling, hookers, booze, and lies. Within half an hour, public opinion had completely flipped. Willow closed the laptop and said to me, "I heard my adoptive father's debt collector died earlier today in the West District by the city edge." "Thank you." I waved my hand, about to tell her not to mention it, but she suddenly knelt beside me. She pulled a bottle of antiseptic from her bag and lowered her head to tend to the scraped skin on my knee. Her voice was quiet. "Next time you need anything from me, just ask. Please don't do something like this again." I nodded, slightly embarrassed. She paused, stood up, and added, "There's one more thing." She unlocked her phone and pulled up a photo, handing it to me. She said, "Alicia has been found." Chapter 7. I looked closely at the blurry photo. It seemed to be taken in a basement. Alicia was lying on a torn-up mattress, her left leg in a cast, her right hand wrapped in bandages. Her face was covered in bruises. She had clearly just been beaten. Willow explained that Alicia had tried to escape during a human trafficking transaction and had been caught. She said, "I found the address. Do you want to rescue her?" I was surprised, but more than that, I was delighted. Not even the bullet comments could figure out where the female lead, Alicia, had gone, but Willow found her easily. She wasn't a crazy woman at all. She was my lucky charm. I smiled and tossed the phone back to Willow. I said, "Then you better hurry, little sister. Do your best and win my parents' affection." Honestly, Makoto's brilliant little scheme had helped me and Willow indirectly. The next day, when my parents heard about the situation, they looked at Willow with new eyes. They even came up with an excuse to let her stay at the Wong residence permanently. Willow was smart. Her complicated upbringing had made her extremely sensitive to others' emotions. In less than a week, she moved out of the guest room into the bedroom next to mine, a room that once belonged to Alicia. Alicia's belongings were either tossed into the junk room or boxed up and donated to charity. Even her photographs had been buried under thick layers of dust in the basement. A month later, my parents officially adopted Willow. They transferred her school registration to an elite private academy. They even wanted to change her name to Willow Wong. I refused. I thought the name Willow Lu sounded lovely just the way it was. 4 years later, both Willow and I were accepted into Qingbei University, just like we'd hoped. As a reward, our parents bought each of us an apartment right outside the school, right across the hall from each other. Every morning, Willow would show up at my door on time to make breakfast and walk to class with me. She was nothing like the Willow from my past life. As for Makoto, Willow told me he dropped out of school after the online scandal and went back to the countryside. It looked like he had no future with Alicia, the so-called female lead. Even the bullet comments had mostly gone silent. But life was starting to get boring. Alicia, it's time to come back. The next day, a shrill siren tore through the quiet of the Wong family estate. Willow and I stood on the balcony, watching as a hunched figure was helped out of the police car. Willow scoffed coldly and yanked my arm. Don't waste time staring at ugly things. But I had already seen everything. Her face was destroyed beyond recognition. Scars ran down her cheeks. Her mouth hung slack, and drool slid uncontrollably down her chin. It was Alicia, my biological sister. She was back. Chapter 8. I immediately called my parents at the company. Half an hour later, they rushed home in a panic. Alicia? Where's Alicia? My mom looked around frantically, but the moment she saw Alicia's face, she took 2 steps back in shock. My dad's expression darkened. His face was filled with disbelief and a disgust he couldn't hide. He looked between us and asked uncertainly, "This is Alicia?" Willow nodded. "The police have verified her identity. It's 100% confirmed." No wonder they were so shocked. Alicia's current appearance was completely unrecognizable. Her face was covered in scars. Her right hand had shriveled into a deformed claw, curled up like a dead bird's toenail. Her left leg was missing below the knee. She could only barely stand by leaning on a wooden crutch. The smell clinging to her body was overwhelming, a sickening mix of antiseptic, bodily waste, and rot. My mom immediately covered her mouth and started retching. Tears streamed down her face. Meanwhile, Alicia just stood there, mouth open, grinning at us like a fool. Even the bullet comments needed a moment to process it. One said, "Wait, this is Alicia? My God, how did things get so bad?" George came back with all his limbs intact. What gave those traffickers the right to torture the female lead like this? Another, "It's all George's fault. He's the reason she suffered so much." But there were others too. "It's okay. Everything's unfolding exactly as it should. The female lead is back. Those 2 filthy snakes are finished. Thank God she's not actually brain damaged. She's just pretending to buy time, waiting to find the male lead and take her revenge." Ah, so she's faking it. I knew it. Those eyes full of venom and madness didn't belong to someone who'd lost their mind. Willow's eyes welled up with tears at the perfect moment. She gently took my mother's hand and said, "Mom, I know a doctor. Let's have him take a look at her first." She shot me a wink. I sighed and said, "Thanks, little sister. I'll leave it to you." Since Alicia wanted to act, then we'd give her the perfect stage. Soon, the private Dr. Willow had called arrived. He said, "The brain damage is irreversible. Her cognitive ability will remain at the level of a 5-year-old for life. She also shows signs of aggression." As he spoke, he discreetly injected Alicia with something. The next second, Alicia suddenly lunged forward and bit down hard on my mother's arm. My mom screamed hysterically. In her panic to escape, she accidentally kicked Alicia's right leg. That was enough to set my dad off. He immediately declared, "Alicia's, get this lunatic out of here. She can't stay in our home. Send her to a psychiatric hospital." My mom, holding her nose, agreed. "George, make sure to cut the costs by 30%. She's beyond saving anyway. No need to waste more money." I could visibly see Alicia's body go rigid. The look in her eyes wasn't so arrogant anymore. She clearly couldn't handle the fact that our parents had rejected her. But dear sister, this is only just the beginning. Chapter 9. Late at night, the nurse Willow had arranged for Alicia sent me a message. "Mr. Wong, your sister suddenly grabbed me just now and, with completely lucid eyes, said she wanted to contact Makoto." So she really hadn't forgotten him. The only question was, would Makoto still be attracted to her now? I was about to make a call, but Willow gently pressed down on my hand. She said, "Not yet." I didn't understand until I saw her fingers dancing across the keyboard, pulling up a video. Alicia had been contacting others too. She was trying to have me kidnapped and sold at auction. Quite bold of her, really. She was hoping I'd fetch 10 million. I raised an eyebrow in mild amusement. Willow let out a cold snort. I remember the rules of that place. If you don't deliver a product to auction, you have to go up for sale yourself. She wants to play the auction game? Fine, let's help her get the full immersive experience. For several days, Willow intercepted 7 or 8 different groups who tried to take me away. Then she handed over Alicia's location to them instead. It wasn't long before I heard Alicia had been taken. A few days later, Willow invited me to attend the auction. That day, alongside Alicia, there were plenty of other products on display, but Alicia was the finale. We waited almost 2 hours before it was her turn. As soon as the details were revealed, bids flew in fast. One bidder after another raised their paddles. The atmosphere was electric, even more intense than the time I was auctioned in my past life. No one expected the final bidder to be a wealthy Southeast Asian businessman who paid a shocking amount for Alicia's first night. According to Willow, the man was infamous for collecting the deformed and grotesque. Alicia's withered right hand and empty pant leg fit right into his niche tastes. 3 days later, Alicia, heavily sedated, was transported like livestock to a luxury suite on the outskirts of the city. A few hours after that, she was dumped behind the hotel in a pile of garbage. Her clothes were torn beyond recognition. Her exposed skin was covered in fresh whip marks, bruises, and burns. Her face was grotesquely swollen, and blood foamed at her lips. I felt a wave of nausea rise and quickly turned away, calling for Willow so we could leave. On the way out, I had someone pick up Alicia's half-dead body and return her to the psychiatric hospital. The bullet comments had gone absolutely insane with rage, but it wouldn't be long before they'd be thanking us, because to fulfill Alicia's wish, Willow and I had gone to great lengths to lure Makoto back. That night, as Willow was finishing a seafood feast, a nurse came in and told us Alicia had woken up. When she saw Makoto, now working as a security guard at the psych hospital, she broke down and threw herself into his arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Meanwhile, the bullet comments howled with joy. Wah! The male and female leads are finally reunited. So touching. Willow and George finally did something decent. Makoto, don't be nervous. That's your future wife. The entire Wong family will be yours soon. You're about to live like royalty. I chuckled softly in resignation and whispered to Willow. At the same time, I announced to the bullet comments a truth already set in motion. I said, the game has officially begun. Chapter 10. Only a few days had passed before news came from the psychiatric hospital. Makoto wanted to resign. After asking around, I found out the real reason. Makoto simply couldn't bear looking at Alicia's face any longer. As expected, the bullet comments immediately began blaming Makoto for being shallow and obsessed with appearance. But honestly, I didn't blame him. In our previous life, Alicia was at least a rich young heiress. Her looks weren't stunning, but they were decent enough. But now things had changed. In her current condition, how could she possibly hold on to someone like Makoto, a man so driven by selfish gain? So I immediately made a suggestion to my parents. Mom, Dad, I heard Alicia's been begging to travel and go outside while at the hospital. She's had a rough few years. Maybe we should fulfill some of her little wishes. My mom's eyes instantly turned red. She sighed for a long time, then called someone to arrange a monthly allowance of 50,000 yuan for Alicia. My dad frowned, but in the end, allowed it. To us, 50,000 wasn't much, but to Makoto, who'd grown up in poverty, it was a fortune. Sure enough, a week later, we heard that Makoto had withdrawn his resignation. Looked like our male and female leads would fall in love all over again, just like in the last life. But life never sticks to the script. 1 month later, before the protagonists could make a comeback, my grandfather passed away. My father was devastated. His grief triggered a severe illness. My mom became overwhelmed juggling the company and caring for my bedridden dad. She handed the funeral preparations over to me. George, you've always been mature and steady. This time, I'm counting on you. I gave a solemn nod. Once she was gone, Willow came over with a piece of information. Alicia's been asking about the funeral details. She's probably planning something for that day. Want to stop her? Stop her? Absolutely not. My dad was Grandpa's beloved youngest son. He had a huge ego. If Alicia dared to cause a scene at the funeral, he'd be the first to tear her apart. We quickly finalized the funeral plans and made sure Alicia got wind of the time and location. On the day of the funeral, I stood beside the casket, eyes casually scanning the crowd. In one corner, Alicia sat in a wheelchair pushed by Makoto. Her dull eyes flickered with hatred now and then. The bullet comments were more excited than the so-called protagonists, already popping champagne mid-funeral, waiting to see me crash and burn. But there was one thing they didn't know. My parents never intended for Alicia to attend. They were ashamed of her. They hadn't even told outsiders that Alicia had returned. The funeral began. The master of ceremonies was still reciting the eulogy when Alicia couldn't hold back anymore. She stumbled forward and threw herself in front of Grandpa's coffin, drawing everyone's attention. Choking back sobs, she cried, "Grandpa!" Clutching the edge of the coffin, she glared at me with venom and screamed, "Grandpa, open your eyes and look. Look what they did to your granddaughter. It's all George. That bastard sold me to human traffickers. He had them break my legs." The guests were stunned. They kept staring at Alicia and whispering to one another. Many eyes turned toward me, but I remained stone-faced, turning instead to look at my parents. Clearly, they hadn't expected Alicia to show up. Their expressions were filled with panic and even more with disgust, especially when they saw the pus dripping from Alicia's face smear onto the coffin. That was the final straw for my dad. Chapter 11. He roared, "Get her out of here. Who let this lunatic in? Drag her away. Don't let her desecrate the old man's peace." The bodyguards immediately stepped forward, but right at that moment, Makoto rushed out. He blocked the bodyguards and stood in front of Alicia, speaking, "Mr. Wong, Mrs. Wong, why are you trying to drive away your own daughter?" Miss Wong had clearly lost her mind, and suddenly she's back to normal today. This must be old Master Wong's spirit from heaven, unable to bear her suffering. Can't you at least hear her out? Of course they wanted to, but what she would say depended on me. Expressionless, I took the remote control Willow handed me and pressed the button gently. The massive digital screen at the front of the morning hall lit up instantly. The crystal-clear hidden camera footage and audio recordings instantly drowned out all noise. Scene 1. Alicia lies on a hospital bed, speaking softly into her phone. At the funeral, I'll pretend to be crazy and miserable to draw everyone's attention. Makoto, that's when you spike my parents' drinks. Then we framed George and that bitch named Willow. My mom cried out in shock and collapsed to the floor. Scene 2. From today, Alicia was staring intensely toward the funeral. Makoto asked nervously, Will this really work? What if? Alicia cut him off impatiently. Look at you, such a coward. What are you panicking for? Have you forgotten what we agreed on? Once they fall, the entire Wong family will be yours. The crowd exploded. My mother's face turned ghostly pale, her body trembling uncontrollably before she fainted on the spot. My father, even more furious, rushed forward and slapped Alicia across the face. He shouted, "Pretending to be insane is one thing, but you were actually trying to kill us." Makoto still tried to defend Alicia, pointing at the screen and yelling that the videos were all fake. But I had already anticipated their reaction. I signaled Willow to toss a transparent evidence bag in front of them. I said, "Original video files, voice print comparison, recording equipment, metadata, plus official certification from the Forensic Center. They're all in there. I'll give you time to come up with another excuse if you like." My voice wasn't loud, but it was enough to crush their mental defenses, especially Makoto, who had never seen any real chaos in his life. He broke almost instantly. After just a few seconds of hesitation, he betrayed Alicia right there. He said, "It wasn't me. It was her. It was all your daughter's idea. I'm just a doctor at the psychiatric hospital. She threatened me to drug you. She forced me to help her take over the Wong family. Or she said she'd drag me down with her. She's mentally ill, remember? Even if she kills someone, she won't get the death penalty." Alicia was completely stunned. She picked up a shoe and threw it at Makoto, screaming hysterically, "You betrayed me." As expected, the bullet comments favored the fragile female lead, relentlessly criticizing Makoto. "What's wrong with the male lead? Do you even know how much the heroine sacrificed for you? And you call yourself the male lead?" Howard got a little scared and immediately sold her out. So selfish. George is brutal, not just killing bodies, but crushing souls. Another comment said, "I feel so bad for the heroine. Everything she did was for Makoto, and now she's been stabbed in the back. Heroine, quick, play your trump card. Just as I was wondering what trump card she could possibly have left, Alicia suddenly calmed down, raised her head, and stared at me with steely eyes. She said, "Dad, you say I'm crazy, but do you even know what George, your good son, did to me?" Right in front of everyone, she stripped off her outerwear. What was revealed were layers of crisscross scars. Some were deep enough to expose raw flesh, the skin split open, and some wounds had even crusted over with dark scabs. She bit her lip and said, "Look at this. This is what your wonderful son, George, did to me." Alicia's voice was hoarse, as if soaked in blood. "They treated me like livestock, like a plaything, sending me to be violated. This is the evidence." My mother, who had just regained consciousness, saw the shocking sight and burst into tears on the spot. She turned back to me in disbelief and asked, "George, what are these wounds? What happened?" Chapter 12. I couldn't help but frown. It had been over a month since Alicia was auctioned off, yet those scars on her body were clearly new. Just as I was about to speak, Willow reached over and took my arm calmly. She pulled out her phone and cast another video onto the large screen. Alicia's voice came through loud and clear. "Yeah, hit me hard, especially the burns. Make sure the injuries are obvious so that my dad and mom will be heartbroken when they see them. The more pain they feel, the more they'll hate George. Once that happens, the Wong family will be ours." When the audio ended, Willow casually pulled up yet another surveillance recording. It was from the day Alicia caught the attention of the human traffickers. In the footage, she completely lost her temper and began cursing me. Her instigation of the traffickers to capture me was also crystal clear. Alicia was utterly stunned. She stammered in disbelief. "No. No way. How? I was so careful." She really was. Even the people I had secretly monitoring her didn't catch on to this plan. But unfortunately for her, Willow is a hacker. My mom finally snapped. She lunged at Alicia like a mad woman, her fingernails clawing at Alicia's face with ferocity. She screamed, "You devil! You monster! How could I have given birth to something like you?" My father didn't even bother to look at her again. With utter disgust, he gave his final verdict. "From this moment on, Alicia is no longer part of the Wong family. Our daughter died 3 years ago. Get this shameless bitch out of my sight." Inside the mourning hall, all that remained was Alicia's despairing screams as she was dragged away and Makoto's furious roars. And hovering silently in the air, bullet comments filled with outrage. "Damn dog. Don't think you've won just because of this. The heroine always makes a comeback. Get ready, George. Alicia's going to crush you under her heel." Is that so? Well, I'm looking forward to it. Chapter 13. Willow originally planned to send Alicia directly to that Southeast Asian tycoon, but I told her to let Alicia go on purpose. Along the way, we also leaked a little piece of information to Alicia. My parents, heartbroken and disillusioned, had lost all interest in the business. They'd already signed the share transfer documents to hand control of the Wong Corporation over to me. Sure enough, just 3 days later, Makoto called on Alicia's behalf. He said, "George, your parents are in our hands. Bring the share transfer documents if you want them back." I ignored the provocations from the bullet comments and happily agreed to the meeting. A good show deserves proper coordination. When Willow and I arrived at the abandoned factory on the outskirts of the city, Alicia was gripping my mother's neck tightly with her good left hand. Her wheelchair was pushed up against my father's lower body. Her face wore a crazed, hysterical grin. Drool and blood were dribbling down her chin, nearly making me nauseous. She shouted, "Hand over the share transfer documents, or I'll kill them." Expressionless, I placed the case on the ground and opened it. Inside was a thick stack of equity transfer contracts, the official seals and stamp pad, and half a case full of US dollar bills. Alicia's eyes lit up with greed instantly. She ordered, "Toss it over." I deliberately threw the case toward a spot not far from Makoto. As expected, Makoto, who had been hiding in the shadows, suddenly lunged forward and snatched the case from the ground. He laughed, "Give it to me. Alicia's already crippled. Let her take the fall. The goods are mine." The sudden betrayal caught Alicia completely off guard. Her stunned silence quickly turned into a surge of hatred. She released my parents and pushed herself toward Makoto with all her might in her wheelchair. But how could she possibly beat him? In just a few moments, Makoto had shoved her right to the edge of the rooftop. Alicia let out a desperate scream, but just as she was about to fall, her survival instincts kicked in, and her hands flailed wildly in the air. By pure chance, she grabbed hold of Makoto's left pant leg. For several short seconds, Makoto didn't even have time to react, and then both of them disappeared from view. A heavy, bone-crunching thud echoed from below, followed by a silence as still as death. Chapter 14. Makoto died on the spot. Alicia, on the other hand, was terrifyingly hard to kill. She fell from the 7th floor and still managed to cling to life long enough to make it to the hospital. Now, though, her body was filled with tubes, her heartbeat barely sustained by a ventilator and nutrient drips. Honestly, she'd be better off dead. When I turned around, I saw that Willow had arrived. No idea how long she had been standing there. I walked up to her and brushed the raindrops off a strand of her hair. I asked, "Everything cleaned up?" She nodded and looked up at me. She said, "Your parents are completely disillusioned. The share transfer documents are signed, and they're already on a private jet heading overseas. The media's been taken care of too. The story's all about an accident." I nodded, then asked her, "How much did they give you?" She, 34%. I smiled. "Not bad. You're free now. Any plans on where you'll go next?" But instead, Willow looped her arms around my neck, her soft voice whispering by my ear. "I'm your pawn. Of course I'll stay by your side forever." The corners of my lips lifted slightly. I took her hand and led her out of the hospital room, leaving the lifeless silence behind us, shut away behind the door. I said, "Oh right. In a few days, go ahead and pull the plug. No point wasting more money." Willow nodded. "Got it."